cutbacks and savings versus the rich getting richer. The Prime Minister even said, I'm wealthy and I'm sorted. Does that?
That would be the most tone-deaf thing this Prime Minister has ever said, ever.
That seem fair?
Well, does what seem fair? I mean, there are wealthy people in this country, and I want all New Zealanders to be wealthier than they are. That's the main reason I'm in politics, and the main reason I think all MPs go into politics, actually, is to make New Zealand a wealthier, more prosperous place. The question is whether or not a capital gains tax will do that, and the answer is no. A capital gains tax is a tax on savings and investment. That is what New Zealand needs more of. We need more savings, we need more investment, we want more capital flowing into the economy, and we want productive investment.
So that implies that this money that the Prime Minister has just made is going to flow into the economy. I suggest it's going to flow into a stock market portfolio or into a savings account. I don't suspect it's going to flow into the economy. So there's this red herring going up about more capital, thinking that your landlords, your property investors, your mom and pop landlords are going to get those earnings and drive them into another business. I don't think that's the case when it comes to this, which is why if you make $200,000 on a house, you should be treated very similarly to if you earn $200,000 from a business. I just think it's as simple as that. That's what I think, at least.
That is what a capital gains tax goes against, and so we are opposed to a capital gains tax. They're also extremely complex, by the way, which is why.
Also a red herring, Whānau, because if it's so hard to put in place, how do all the other countries do it? We got told yesterday by these guys, look at what Australia is doing with this and this and this. They wouldn't talk about what Australia is doing with things like capital gains tax, though, would they? Because that's a less convenient conversation for them.
Every time governments have looked at introducing them in the past, they actually ultimately haven't done so in the end, because in the end you end up taxing KiwiSaver, potentially end up taxing family batches, jewellery, art, and small business.
Sorry, this is like the trio of red herrings. You can just stipulate in law what it's going to be. He's basically saying, well, it could be this and it could be that and it could be that, and legislation can just dictate exactly what it is. Family. I mean, I don't have a problem with CGT on family batches, second properties, third properties, but if you wanted to, you could say family homes and one more, and then every other one gets it done. So it's red herring again. He's almost going, if we did a capital gains tax, we'd have no control as to what we taxed. It's like, well, you write the legislation, so you have all the control.
And so ultimately, the last thing New Zealand needs right now is another tax. We need to grow the economy, and you can't tax your way out of a recession.
Kieran, is the Prime Minister being treated unfairly?
No, of course he's not. I mean, he's rallied against the idea of a capital gains tax and then sells 2 of his 7 properties, makes almost $500,000 in profit and doesn't pay a cent in tax. Whereas every single worker in this country pays tax on every cent they earn. It's quite clear that the taxation system in this country is unfair. And when you've got the PM rallying against something that would have made him pay tax on those sales, of course people are going to be asking questions. Of course they want to have a discussion about that, whether it's right and whether it's fair, and whether it is something that people are comfortable with. When you have a Prime Minister who's declaring himself wealthy and sorted, making profits that are actually going to be higher than many people's KiwiSaver accounts when they retire, yet they've all paid tax on that money. So I think it's a fair discussion.
It's actually a really fair question, Emily. It's like, should we pay tax on money we earn or make? If the answer is yes, capital gains tax is what should be. If the answer is no, then a whole bunch of us are paying a whole bunch of tax we shouldn't be paying. I mean, this has got a couple of minutes to go, but what do you think so far, Emily?
The argument of you shouldn't be going after him, he's we're going unfairly against Chris Luxon, is really annoying, because he's the Prime Minister, sure, so he gets a spotlight on him, but he is reflective of so many Kiwis out there who are flipping property and making hundreds of thousands in gains and not paying anything. And the other thing too is I think someone said that he would only be paying 70,000 into the tax pool, which isn't that much. He still gets a buttload of money for that.
Yeah.
And it's 70,000, which is not that much. But if you duplicate that for 10, 20 people, that's a lot of money. It's almost $1 million that will be going back into, no, 100,000, no, $1 million that'll be going back into the economy, which is much better than it just floating between rich people who are flipping houses between each other.
Yeah, and the kind of red herring that Chris Bishop is doing, this kind of, your jewelry is going to be taxed next, that when no one ever anywhere in this country, right?
Yeah.
And within like, oh my gosh, how can we set it to 50 kilometers per hour? They could drive any speed. Well, you write in the legislation 50 km/h. You write it in. So you write in, not the family home, or you write in the family home is clear plus one other. And then after that, so it's just, it's almost I think treating people like they're just freaking idiots. It's like I don't think people have the money literacy to be able to discern that too. So when they say they're coming after your KiwiSaver, people are going to go, "Oh no, my KiwiSaver," but you already get tax interest. Don't you get tax on the interest with the KiwiSaver as well? Yeah, earnings.
Yeah, so anything you earn in terms of interest on that, you're already getting taxed on it.
You got savings in the bank that earns interest. You pay tax on that. So there will be tax on this. Let's say 500,000. That's the number Kieran used. There could be tax on it if he puts it into the bank and that starts earning interest. But actually, that's sort of a secondary issue to what it is, because if I am a salaried worker and I pay PAYE and then I save some of that and that starts to accrue interest, that gets taxed as well. So you're still missing out that initial taxation of the thing you've earned or made on that thing. So,
and you make more money with the money that you've got too. Money makes money. So if you've got more in the bank, you just make more and more of it compared to what you can make with tiny $100 savings.
And remember, right, this Prime Minister was very keen when Labour was in to make the point that an appearance of a conflict of interest was basically as bad as a conflict of interest. Remember he said this?
Well, for the very reason that it actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrongly. I just say to you, that's the perception. Whether that's real or not doesn't really matter.
So if there's a perception of something, it doesn't actually matter if it's real or not, from the guys who cancelled the brightline test, made it lower, which enabled him to sell this house and get tax-free hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is there a perception there of bias, a perception of a conflict of interest? I would say yes. And according to pre-election Christopher Luxon, that's as bad as if there actually is bias or a conflict of interest.